Once a month, Paula Pant, host of the Afford Anything podcast, answers voicemail questions the listeners send in. Here's one now.
My name is Hillary. I'm a recent college graduate working an entry-level job. I have been saving up my emergency fund, but I keep depleting it to pay for things like the mechanic and doctor's visits and vet visits. My current position is temporary, though, because I'll be going to law school in about a year and a half, which I know will be a massive expense. I assume that I will be taking out massive student loans to pay for it. My question is, does my financial planning have to be on hold? I have some student debt from undergrad, but not much. It's a drop in the bucket compared to what I'll be faced with after law school. Is there anything else I can do now to set me up well for the crushing debt in my future?
Okay, crushing debt. That's fun.
Yeah, Hillary needs to buy a helmet. That's it. Because of crushing debt, you don't want to hurt your noggin.
Make sure to finance that helmet.
Over 36 months at 18%.
I'm sorry, we shouldn't be joking about this. I could send your angry letters to Joe at Stacking.
Nice. Beep, beep. Easy on that. You know what I like about what she said, Paula? I like the fact that she's wondering about planning ahead, because most people will get into crushing debt and they don't plan at all. They just hope it works out better later. So I really like questions like this. And for somebody just out of college asking this type of question, bravo, Hillary.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to relate this to a Simpsons episode because,
of course,
it was one of the recent ones. It was this scene. It was so terrible, but it was so telling. It was this episode where Mr. Burns decides to start a for-profit university. There's a scene, it's graduation, and all of these people are coming up on stage, and they're wheeling like a wheelbarrow full of gold coins. And then they drop it at Mr. Burns' feet and he hands him a diploma. And then the next person comes up with this big stack of cash and drops it at Mr. Burns' feet and he hands him a diploma. You know, and the next person comes up with rubies and pearls and emeralds and drops it at Mr. Burns' feet and he hands him a diploma. Then all of the kids, he kind of looks out, the camera takes a wide zoom angle and he looks out over the entire auditorium of recent graduates. And they're all like, okay, now where are our jobs? And Mr. Burns is like, welcome to your first economics lesson, kids. And then he pushes the button and the trap door releases underneath them and they all fall into a fiery hell.
Bah! Well, and that's Hillary's goal, right? Don't be caught in the fiery hell.
Yeah.
And so this, Paula, I think is an income question, which is how much money do I need to make sure that my debt isn't crushing? And obviously, when it comes to student loans, if they're government student loans, she can defer student loans to a certain point. I don't think we need to get into that too much, but while she's looking for the right job. So before she takes on the crushing debt, I think there's just some math she needs to apply, which is go to a place like Glassdoor or to
Salary.com.
Yeah, Department of Labor, and take a look at statistics for the type of job that she's going after and make sure that this crushing debt isn't a huge mistake before she jumps into it.
Yeah, exactly. I hear the same thing. I mean, so if you isolate only the debt itself, the thing is, student loan debt is not the same thing as debt that you rack up on a credit card because you've made one too many trips to Nordstrom and the Buckle. Student debt is an investment if, and the major if is if you are using that money in order to put you into a career path that A, you want to be in and that you'll enjoy, and B, that provides a particular payout that justifies the cost of it, of the diploma. Right. So, for example, if you wanted to be, I'm just going to pull something out of thin air here. Let's say that you wanted to become a doctor. There are two possible ways that you could go about doing it. You could either work for a very, very, very long time and save up the $100,000 or the $200,000 or however much it costs to actually to go through med school and then pay for all of that in cash. But that would take you an incredibly long time to do. Or you could short circuit that by taking out those loans, going to med school, and then beginning your career. And over time, the fact that you are in this career, assuming that you want to be there, assuming that that's what you want to do, you're in a career that you enjoy and that pays you well enough, you've more than justified the cost of it. So I feel like I'm repeating myself here, maybe just for the point of for the sake of like reinforcing the point. But as long as those two conditions are met, then I don't think the debt will be crushing. The debt will be an investment. So I think
that's the key. You have to make sure it's an investment. Mm-hmm. I have a distant relative whose son is in his third graduate program, and it's film studies, and he hasn't really done anything with it, and he takes on more and more and more debt. And his dad said, boy, I hope they don't listen to the show.
Don't worry, nobody listens to the show.
It's just you and I. I said, wow, so where's his career going? And he kind of rolls his eyes. He goes, I don't know. My job's to be supportive. And that's a whole different show, by the way, because I thought, no, it's not.
Yeah.
Your job is to parent. But the fact that, he's in this film studies dead end. Film studies doesn't have to be a dead end, but it clearly seems to me like there's no point except taking a lot of film studies classes and maybe avoiding growing up in this particular case.
Yeah.
There was something else that Hillary said that I wanted to point to, which is she was talking about her emergency fund. And I heard a little frustration, didn't you, when she was talking about how the emergency fund keeps getting depleted?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could hear that.
That's what the emergency fund's for. The emergency fund is supposed to be that first line of defense. And the cool thing is Hillary has an emergency fund, so she doesn't have to worry about credit card debt, which if she were calling and saying, oh, I keep paying off my credit card, but then the balance goes up, comes back down, goes up, comes back down. That's what I usually saw when I was a financial planner, was people would struggle with. So struggling with your emergency fund is way better. Now, I can give Hillary and everybody else a little cool thing that we devised when I was a financial planner. And that was, if she wants to see that money come out of the emergency fund a little slower, make sure it's at a place that doesn't have instant access. Mm-hmm. So we do this cool thing where we would put the emergency fund at a bank across town, and we would cut up the debit card and the online access, make sure that that's not hooked up. So when there was an emergency, Paula, what my client had to do was make a decision. Would you rather drive across town to get it or solve it a different way? And what was cool was that just when you put that little roadblock between you and your money, the emergency a lot of the time would evaporate and you'd find a whole different way to get stuff taken care of when the money wasn't right there.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I totally agree. I've done that myself in order to hide money from myself.
Yeah, it's all these cool little tricks and stuff.
Yeah, I did that with a Wells Fargo account once. You remember Wells Fargo?
Well, I have 16 Wells Fargo accounts, apparently.
15 of which I never knew about.
I didn't, but I'm happy to have more.
Yeah, but I did that with a Wells Fargo account. I hid money. I threw some money in there and just kept it there, made sure that I, wasn't getting any monthly fees, paying any monthly fees at the time. I've since closed it down. But I tucked some money away in there, and then I cut off all access to it. So
That's awesome.
There's no way for me to get it other than physically going to a Wells Fargo branch. And that was just inconvenient enough that I never did it. That's
so cool. Yeah. Build it correctly, and it's amazing what your brain can do.
Yeah, exactly. The other thing that I would say, though, Hillary, is, so on the topic of emergency funds, just be sure that when you are tapping your emergency fund, as I see it, there are two different types of things that people may consider emergencies, right? So car repairs and home repairs, you know that those are at some point going to happen. You don't know exactly when, but you know that at some point they will happen. So those are irregular expenses. And then on kind of a different branch, you've got things that are genuine emergencies, like things that you just could never have even expected. Like if a tree falls on your roof, and you break your leg and you lose your job all in the same week, sort of a thing.
It's a bad week.
Your dog bites you. The good news is you'll have a country song contract.
Immediately.
And so what I tell people to do, and this is a little bit more advanced because it's not something that people can do when they're at the beginning of their financial journey, but over time, I encourage people to set the goal of creating two different funds. One that's for irregular expenses, such as home repairs and car repairs, things that you know will happen. You don't know when, but you know they will happen. And then also, in addition to that, have an emergency fund that's for those total black swan events that will probably never happen.
I love it. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know what to say there, Paula. Do I just go ta-da?
Ta-da! Ba-da-da! Da-da-da! Da-da-da! Yeah, and then back to the student loan question. I mean, I think it's great that you're thinking about that right now. And the fact that you're calling in and asking this question is a clue that you're not going to take out any more debt than you need. So I think there's really nothing else to say other than maintain an emergency fund, live reasonably, and make sure that the diploma that you are getting is something that is worth the investment that you're making. Think of it this way. Do you have this, I don't know what field you're going into, but let's say that you want to be an architect. Do you wake up thinking, I want more than anything, I want to be an architect, and I want that so much that I'm willing to borrow $40,000 in order to make this dream come true? Like, is that the attitude that you have towards it? And if it is, then awesome. But if that's not your attitude towards it, if you're doing it because your parents expect you to go to grad school, or all your friends are going to grad school, or people say that you're never going to have a future unless you at least have a master's degree, like, those are the wrong reasons to do it.
Boy, that's why I came on this podcast, was because my parents thought it would be great. And and you made me pay all that money to be on. Now I'm feeling a little self-conscious.
You're borrowing all this money from Steve.
Is there a spotlight on me? It's getting hot in here.
Steve's like the lender who, all the guests who come on, they pay a fee. They borrow it all from Steve. He's collecting like 15% interest.
Yeah, something about keeping my kneecaps. I don't know.
All right, cool. I think we've run that question into the ground.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Thank you so much, Hillary, again, for asking that question, and good luck with everything. Sounds like you're going to be fine.
Hey, did you enjoy this excerpt from the Afford Anything podcast? Then click to download our free ebook, Escape. You'll be taken to a page where you can enter your email for immediate access to everything you need to know about escaping the 9-to-5 grind to live life on your terms. And you can also subscribe with one simple click to get alerted when new videos are uploaded.